This video is called The Pilgrim's Way. So, I have been reading a lot about the elemental realms and our connection to nature. And my previous video had been about how nature is my immune system and it increases my biofield. It gives me my health and it also connects me to my multidimensionality. I'm going to talk a little bit about rewilding ourselves and the concept of pilgrimage. And the reason that I have this beautiful cashmere silk tapestry behind me is I just want you to see it. Okay. And then I will move everything again so that you can see the notes that I'm putting up today. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important, again, to remain human, to do human things, to connect with nature, and remember that you are a wild being supported completely by Gaia and the cosmos. And that what's happening in here is a type of a war. So the type of a war that's happening is like they're not going to come and like get you with bullets and guns. That's not the type of war. They're coming with games and chat GPT. That's the type of war. And on my Facebook page right now, I have some info on the latest study of what happens to your brain when you use AI and you use it to like write your sentences and your book and your latest essay and give somebody like a prescription. So doctors and so forth are now being asked to use ChatGPT. So you have to realize what's happening is this insidious, like bit by bit, it went from television to other screens. And in my experience, even though you're looking at a screen right now, the reason that I'm using this screen is I'm trying to get us to go and be wild together and study the stars and understand that you are completely supported. So I'm going to also point out in this video a little bit more around Thomas Meyer's information that I had explained around the elemental realms. So the good elementals, the water sprites, the sea nymphs, the oceanids, the springs, the wells, the ancient culture of the feminine, because right now in the northern hemisphere we are moving into the shortest night, the longest day. The sun has just conjoined Polaris on Juneteenth, and now it is going to be our solstice degree mark conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, the sacred waters of the feminine. And that's why it's so important for me this year to get back to that sacred water, that sacred feminine, that holy spring. And at that time, as I had explained, we're going to have this alchemical marriage of the water and the springs with the fire and the sun. And it just so happens that we have a water trine and a fire trine at that time in that first week in November. But why is it important to pilgrim or pilgrimage or go into the wild? And I do it all the time. So basically, what every day, but also once a month, I will go someplace that I've never been before. So I posted this week on Juneteenth. I have an Instagram private account of a beautiful top of the mountain, like the top of this ancient volcano. My daughter and I climbed up this massive uh, mountain, which is the Scutney, and we climbed up to the top where the water, the springs were coming out of the top of this ancient volcano. And I had never been there before. And I didn't know what to expect. I was in my flip flops. I was hiking with my daughter, and she's like, "Oh, mom, let's go to this waterfall springs on the top of the mountain." I'm like, "Okay, honey, I'm just wearing flip flops." Here we go. So, and that's the type of energy that is my immune system and keeps me strong and helps me to make choices. They're very spontaneous, they're very adventurous, and I know that I'm going to be supported by nature while I'm out there. So, Yes, so we hiked to the top, and the water was coming down, and it was like this massive cliff, and you can see out. And I shared that on my Facebook page, the unbelievable view, and on my community post, wishing you all a happy Juneteenth. But the point of pilgrimage is that day by day, the events that are happening right now are still going to be like wearing down at you. But you need to get the soul nourishment. That's the point, is to like pilgrimage and go to natural spaces. Like today, this afternoon, Claude and I are going to kayak the bog, which is this long winding right under another mountain here in New Hampshire called Ragged Mountain. But you're going through this ancient winding bog, and you're looking up at this beautiful mountain, and the wind's blowing, and it's the solstice, and we're getting all the wind energy, the elementals of the water, and also the fire from the sun and the earth, and the deep deep water, the wellspring. Okay, so the alchemical marriage of your soul has to do with being spontaneous and going out there and being wild and on adventures. And so for my daughter and I, that's what we always do. That's what I've always done with my whole family. That's what we do, is we are very sure that we will be supported by Gaia and to make decisions from the soul. So remember when I was doing some of the galactic history, and after the invasion and the fall of Atlantis, there was this a lot of subconscious programs. One of them is the death program, that, we're suffering and we're eventually going to die because we're mortals. But that's actually changing. Right now, we are moving back into our full dimension, multi-dimensional structures, and that's possible for you. That's absolutely available for you. And so you just have to grab it. You have to go for it and get out of your busyness, the routine, the rat race, and go for it. Get really wild. um in terms of the elemental realms, we're getting heavy pressure, yes, from the Aramonic, which is basically AI, but also the Luciferic and these off-world soratic spirits, and also, nasty, nasty asuras out there. But then the elemental realm is available for us too. And I feel like the pilgrimage should always be to those places. You want to get outside of the 5G, you want to get outside of the frequency weapons, and you want to go to natural places like water and caves and waterfalls and springs where they can't put those things. And the negative ions of like a beach, like an unincorporated municipality like Shell Point Beach in Wakala County, Florida, which is where I'm also planning for us to go, in addition to the Leon Sinks archaeological sites and the caves and the springs and all of these places. The beach is an unincorporated place. Like nobody even knows it exists. It's this gorgeous little uh, private place where you can go, and it's all unincorporated. So my other idea is like, the reason that I want us to go there is that's where I think we should build community. So in northern Florida, and I've already shown you pictures, that is unincorporated municipal land that can be privately held and even held in trust. So I would love for us, and more people on my Facebook page got information today, because we do still have about 50, we could take about 10 more rooms, basically, of people. And then there's people coming in their RVs, and there's also a hip camp that is a goat farm. So, people will be coming in vans, but also the lodge itself is so beautiful. And that's where I want our private group of the people that have been invited to meet, because there's a library, there's a dining room, there's these beautiful ballroom spaces with pianos and like interesting artifacts, and we can all lounge together and sit by a fire. Like it's gorgeous. Plus, the spring is right there. All right. So that's my idea. And the pilgrimage is very important. So you might think that you can do this alone, and that's fine. You should do it alone. I do it every day. It's getting sunny out right now, so I'm really excited to like go with Claude, and we'll go on a bog adventure this afternoon and look up at the wind and the wildness and just be out there. But during that early, Atlantean invasion, they also it wasn't just like terror of, dying from something, but it was also scarcity. So people have mentioned that to me. And what I have to tell you is that whatever your subconscious mind is dwelling in, that's what will arise for you. So if you're always living in that place of not enough and scarcity and trying to get the cheapest, so forth, my experience is that you can't build value from that place. You have to build value from what you value and go and do that. For me, I always find that nature and those kind of things bring more value. They bring more energy. Then I'm like an energetic millionaire who's got tons of energy and ideas and creativity, and I can share that. And that's why when you have a session with me, I'm always very like perky and well rested and listening and really intent to hear you completely because I take care of my soul. I'm a pilgrim. I'm always on pilgrimage. I'm always going places and researching and getting into the wild. And even spontaneously, we'll go up to the top of a mountain and stand at the top of a giant waterfall because that's our true nature. Really, you're a primal being. You are a creator being. And so that's it. So, yes, there's fears of death, there's fears of scarcity, there's also the fear of conformity, right? So not sure whether you're going to fit in or not and so forth. But what after reading the Elementals book by Thomas Meyer, I'm also realizing that that has been part of this package, right, is to separate us so that you feel safer alone in your house, and you never want to go out and see other people. They're doing that very purposely, folks. So it's not just video games and AI chat GPT that's taking over your brain, but it's also closing down your heart. And what Thomas Meyer talked about was like the heart is shrinking, the pulses, like the energy of the heart and the heart line, which I showed you in the palmistry, is starting to reduce and shrink until you then are trauma bonded with the oppressor. And so you have to break out of that. You have to be a pilgrim. You have to go on adventures. And I was reading about this man, Brendan, from I think it was like the 1300s in Ireland. I was reading about him after kind of the Druids kind of converted over to be Christian, but they still had like ravens on their shoulder and, went out on pilgrimages themselves. So I was reading about it and I was thinking, we've got to get back to that, like the 1300s, where you're a pilgrim. Like I'm going to drive 1,500 miles to meet you there. And yes, I am taking the week off too. So like all of us are going to co-create together. So that sense like that you can be in community needs to be built again. Get over the fear of death, get over the fear of scarcity, get over the fear of like I have to stay alone because everybody has bad cooties. I mean, we have to do some community building because where we're going into the age of Aquarius, and I put up some funny pictures of myself in the springs as an aquatic tart, from that Monty Python movie, The Aquatic Tart. The lady of the lake, she's the aquatic tart. Well, that's what we're going to be doing. We're moving into that experience where you have to be completely responsible for your creation in community. That's what's going to happen next anyway, anyways, for anyone who is going to pass through the sun and move into the Aquarian age like that. So I wanted to just show you some tools of how to learn too, and why after 2018, when I saw a lot of my students trying to figure out like how to do astrology and read the stars from their device, um, And I also find like people miss my directions on how to make an appointment or set up something for the retreat or study astrology. And it's because, folks, you are looking at a screen, but you're not getting it into your body. So just like you're a pilgrim and you're walking to like renew your soul and go on an adventure and connect with nature, because that's what pilgrims do. They just go and they see what's available, right? And it grows inside of you, this wild current of freedom. Well, when you're studying, like when I studied Aurora's classes and I took her Path of Light class, my notebook is full. Like I'm writing while she's teaching, I'm writing pages, 5 pages, drawing all the things that she's drawing while she's teaching. So for you, a lot of learning has become passive where you just feel safer like watching the teacher and not being the teacher. So what I'm doing is I'm asking you to not be passive. If I'm speaking, you're writing notes. Like if I'm going to watch someone's video, I'm not being entertained. I watch very, very few videos. And when I do, even if it's like Terrence McKenna, or Paul Wallace, I'm writing notes the whole time. I'm writing notes. I'm taking notes. I'm drawing pictures. I'm getting it into my body. It's in my head. It's in my heart. It's in my hands. And then it incorporates into my body. And then I can speak about it and have a conversation about it. And then I start to know it. And then I put it in practice. And, so here's when I watched the video from Thomas Meyer. These are my notes, just so you can see how I do things. And remember, I am a licensed educator, but my master's degree is in cooperative learning, humanistic education, how to get someone to really know it in their soul, to really learn it completely. Their body knows it on a cellular level. So when I was reading the Thomas Meyer, um, blank blank from the spiritual perspective, and I say blank blank, it's because I can't say that word. He was saying that what he saw after the administration of that was he saw black in the aura, which is exactly what I saw. And I found that very confirming. He said that it separated the human from the elemental being, or your spirit body. And he said what he saw was the soul would get very narrow, and then the pain body, or what he calls the shadow, would grow exponentially and become more aggressive. So the pain body gets bigger. With the black holes in the aura, that's when the other things like the asuras and stuff can get in, which is why the last video I was showing you, like nature is my biofield. That is my aura. That's what protects me because I have good elementals all around me all the time. So he said that predator mind is actually the pain body growing. And that's what I'm noticing. People's pain body has grown so much that again today I had a cancellation like at the last minute because something painful happened, and the soul reserves of the spirit body are so low that the person can't even meet with me to talk about it. And I'm like, wow, what that is called soul fragmentation. So you're so worn down, you're so beaten, and the only thing of value seems to be like materialistic, like if you have enough money and you have enough outfits and whatever, that seems to be like where people put their focus, but they're not putting their focus in the magical forces that increase your strength. So people often think, if it's, the right amount of material resources, you'll be better. That's not it, pilgrim. Pilgrim, it's your spiritual resources that make you stronger. that make you clearer, that make you have bright, sparkling eyes, that help you to create things, that make you want to go on adventures, that make you so that you don't compromise with anything that's negative or dark or intrusive. So do you understand? Do I need to say this again? What Thomas Meyer saw, and he's a seer too, was he saw the blackness in the aura from the when the soul becomes narrower and the shadow body of pain actually grows, becomes more influential, and becomes more aggressive. That's called soul fragmentation. So you can't actually feel the quality and the beauty of your soul and how supported you really are. He also said that all allopathic medicine is detrimental and all of it affects the afterlife. And he says people don't even think about their afterlife anymore. They're not thinking about their soul. So these black magic forces of the allopathic medicine are what is trying to keep us earthbound, suffering, imprisoned. That includes certain types of foods that have been altered, certain types of chemotherapy, medicines, all of that is apparatus for soul separation. So for me, if you're going to be on this rewild of the wilding retreat of the wild hearts who want to like plunge into the springs and do the alchemical marriage with their soul and the spirit fire of the cosmos, then you have to have your body clean of that stuff, okay, before you come. And the feeling of being absolutely apathetic or what's called abandoned by God. That's what Thomas Meyer said that he says he's seeing. And I'm seeing this like at an exponential rate, folks. So you have to get going. Like you have to feed your soul body with everything you've got. Be ready to be a pilgrim and do wild adventures all the time. So he talked about the Seratic spirits as transhumanism spirits. So all of that was in the, and it's also in Hollywood films and all the kind of black magic music and different things that I've spoken about, that actually enters you and you feel exhausted. So if you're watching Netflix rather than like going out and swimming in the bog and down deep into the wellspring, then those things are what are trying to trap you here. And he talked about 13 different groups of these Seratic beings that are very violent and they're from outside of Earth, and that the had those in it. And it wasn't even the whole rest of it. It was that these things are trying to take over your beautiful physicality, your amazing, sorry about that, your amazing being that you are. So those things are trying to grab your soul and take your vitality. So you can get reduced and disconnected, and also all of the EMF stuff, um, the it's hard for me to say these words, the engineered food and things like that, all of it, all of that is trying to make you feel weak, disoriented, and like you're not even powerful enough to be a pilgrim. So I'm trying to get you your pilgrim strength back so that we can do this and that you know that we can do this. And as I said, that unincorporated municipality of those wild springs that will forever be wild and preserved is where I would actually like for us to all buy land and build a community. So it's not just the rewilding retreat. I want you to see this place that is right on the Gulf of Mexico and has got all the springs. And yet you're only 25 minutes from Tallahassee. So you can get anything that you need at all, anytime. So to me, it's a beautiful place to build community. Now, that was some of the stuff around the Thomas Meyer stuff, and that you should know that um, you want to do as much clearing and cleansing as I showed you in the last video with your hands, with your incredible power that you are. And then also make sure that you're really clearing your internal world so that your soul can stay strong, right? I'm going to show you a few of the things that I made when I was studying with Demetra George. So, if you are going to study, you should be making your study sheets of all your symbols. Remember, like the good old days when we learned like that? I'm going to show you another thing about the good old days of how we used to learn. Do you remember these things where you studied and then on the other side was all the information, but someone would just show you that? And the other side had the information with the keywords from that? Study cards, study cards, study cards, study cards. Ah, what's that one? Study cards, cardinal water, the crab, the breasts and the stomach. We're going to get into that. So I want to show you, I'm just showing you how I study. Like, and I've showed you these before. I draw it all out. I write the whole thing out. I make all the information. And then I have this wonderful, huge 3-ring binder, right? Massive thing that has all of my sheets that I've handwritten. And I'll show you what they look like. And that is how you learn. Not in 5 minutes, in 10 years. That's how long it takes to study astrology. And I'm going to be doing all of the intro stuff for this. And then, yes, there is a private group that I'm doing the Zoom calls for also, and they'll be able to ask me questions. So, this is the way you study. You have to do it with your head, with your hands, with your heart, with your body. You don't just read about the elemental realm that Thomas Meyer is talking about. You go. You go and you get information. Like the other day, I was thinking a lot about um, the neurological disorders that people are experiencing. And I was walking along this forest trail and I suddenly had this overwhelming smell of pine. And I was like, wow, the pine elementals are speaking to me right now. And I was on my mini pilgrimage into the woods, right? And the pine elementals were like the smell of pine. And so I came back and I studied about turpentine, and I immediately put like turpentine on top of this essential oil balm, and I rubbed it into the top and I put it all over my throat and all over my chest, because that one day that I was using the smudge, I could feel a little tickle in my throat and I was like, something's in there, we've been breathing some weird stuff. And I put it on my throat. I felt a very odd feeling, almost down to the musculature and the bones of my body. And I realized that turpentine, which is a terpene, terpineal, from the pine tree, entered my body deep into my tissues, even though I put it on topically. So not only did I connect with the elementals on that pilgrimage, but I got information from them. I don't need to go to the doctor. I can hear, I can feel, I can smell, I can see. And I realized that the pine tree was trying to tell me something. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I have that connection. And it's my naturopathic doctor is out there on the pilgrimage. So that's how I interpret, and I will immediately put it into practice. I won't go into like thinking about it too much. Maybe I'll do a little bit of research, but then I'll just try it, see how it feels. And I sat there really working with the elemental nature of the pine tree and felt it come into my body and heal my body. It was astounding. So that's how you use a pilgrimage. Is a lot of people want their like Dunkin' Donuts drive through for $3.99 super fast, and that still happens to me. I got a message last night, just before I was trying to go to bed, after we had a big campfire and I did my massive solar gazing because it was Juneteenth and our star conjoined with Polaris last night. So it was a really big deal. So, I came in and I was turn off all my devices and put them in Faraday at night. And I saw this message of someone asking me my understanding of Enoch Metatron. And I was like, wow. I mean, someone can just like decide to text me. And I've done tons of videos on this, but you see, people still want it from like an AI immediate answer for $3.99. And that to me is not of value. There was no like, you know, like a sacred request to ask. There was no mention of like why she wanted to know this. It was just like using me like a GPT. And that's what I've noticed. And that is because, as Thomas Meyer says in his book about the spiritual perspective, the blackness in the aura is separating the human from their elemental body, which is their spirit body or their aura. And the soul is becoming narrow and the pain body is growing. And that's why we have to rewild ourselves. That's why we have to get into magic again. That's why we must be in community and really sit together. And then I'll speak to you authentically. And then I'll be right there with you, for you. So all of this online stuff, like I would like to get away from this and I would like for us to live in communities. If I'm going to teach and you're going to teach because you all have things to teach too, shouldn't we be doing it in some way where we actually sit together? What if we grow food together? What if we bring water from the springs together? To me, this is paradise on Gaia. All of this other junk is what's increasing the aggressive pain body and the predator mind. So that really concerns me. What else did I want to show you today? Oh, yes, the Farmer's Almanac. This is from last year. But I just want to show you that if you have a Farmer's Almanac, this is how you read it. So this is a June, and you can see that right now on the 20th, we have the longest hours of daylight here. And you can see what I was telling you is at 15:18, it will stay there and then it will be 15:17, 15:18. Today's the longest day, the shortest night. And then 15:17, 15:17, 15:17, 15:17, and then it starts to speed up. So what that is that's the length of the day, and that's how you know that our sun just conjoined Polaris and we have the longest growth period right now of the sun being in Cancer, which is cardinal water. So that's just a really simple thing, a farmer's almanac, and it also gives you all the different dates to plant certain things by the moon cycles, the parts of the body that the different signs affect, and so forth. So it's a nice little cute thing that gives you all of, like in July, it will tell you the new moon, the first quarter, the full moon, the last quarter. And it also gives you all the interesting feast days. And if you like to get the 2025 or the 2026, it will tell you, like Mary Magdalene's feast day, the tides, and all of that. It's just an interesting little tool. Now, the other books that you might need for if you're going to seriously study astrology is Demetra George's books. So Demetra George was my teacher when she got the ancient scrolls from ancient Greece, which probably came out of Alexandria originally, but they were the scrolls. And this is volume 2, Demetra's book. When I studied with her, with Jupiter was in Cancer last time in 2013, she was writing this book so that she was kind of testing it on me at that point. And she tells really clearly like what each house is about. So we're going to be going over that, but what you're going to do and what you need to do is you need to draw it out for yourself. So it's one thing to read it, it's another thing to draw it out because that's how you learn. You have to really engage your head, heart, and hands when you're doing this. Okay, so that's a little bit about the pilgrim's journey and why to make a pilgrimage. And so, whether you join us or not, and as I said, people are doing tents, they're doing RVs, but the main thing is the rental of one place that we can all eat together, go to the library together, and we're going to do magical ceremonies. As I said, we'll do the bee priestesses of the raw honey of the ancient priestesses called the Melissae, or, it comes from the word Melissa, the sweet Melissa. Cacao ceremony. We will also do ritual oil or the anointing. After emptying yourself in the spring, we'll also do the anointing. So it's kind of like the alchemical marriage of the water and the heat of the sun, the flowers of Florida. So on the full moon, we'll do a silent meditation, but we'll offer the tincture of the blue lotus flower. The lotus is that which dives deep, 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 and roots itself down in the bottom of the waters and then comes up as this eternal, flowering, sun catching lotus. And it's the example of your crown chakra. Okay, so that's the lotus ceremony. So some different things like that. Plus, we'll go to the Shell Point Beach, and there's a boat activities. And on the last day, there'll be an optional kayak or canoe with a guide on the Wasissa, which is just like 20 minutes down the road. And then wherever you want to go from that, I would encourage you to stay longer and look for land and look for property in that area where you can grow food year long, trees that produce fruit, but also moringa, which is like a super protein, but like the highest vibrational plant on earth is the moringa tree. So that area in the Apalachicola area is the they consider it Eden. It's got the most ancient trees in all the plant life that are is discussed in the original text, like the original scriptures and biblical texts. It describes Apalachicola and the type of trees and plant life and so forth that are there, plus all the artifacts that I showed you in the rewilding retreat video. So, all very interesting. And I'm encouraging you, whether you do this pilgrimage or you create your own pilgrimage or you just go on daily adventures, which are like from the pilgrim's heart, remember to spend more time on your soul and less time in the arguing about the pain body and the predatory mind, because that is growing to the point where I'm like, wow, humans, what's going on? What happened to that beautiful, kind, sensual nature where everyone was playful and joyful and singing and shaking their rattle and enjoying their life? That's your decision. As within, so without. So you've got to get that back in, come back into the soul, my pilgrim friend. All right, bye bye for now.